This is the DRF Players Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Thomas Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast. This is show, amazingly enough, 357, the Friday, August 10th, 2018 edition. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, back with you, not from the Brooklyn Bunker, not from the little house on the east side, but from the new stretch area at beautiful Saratoga Racecourse, joined in person once again, not from the planet Texas. The other day he was wearing a shirt declaring himself the reigning champion, but we know him as the people's champion. He's Jonathan Kinchin. JK, what's up?
Man, I'm fired up about sitting up here. There's so much ambient noise. There is no way that PTF can get mad at me for doing anything. I got my phone ringer on. I'm scooting the chair around. I'm gonna mess with the microphone. I'm gonna cough. I'm gonna sneeze. Do everything. And I know that I'm gonna be clear from the noise here. But it's always exciting to be at Saratoga. There's nothing like walking through those gates, looking out onto the grass courses here, seeing the dirt, tractors going around. The starts to pick up. This place is definitely the most magical place in racing.
Oh, absolutely. Saratoga Racecourse, just incredible. Even with the little bit of bad luck we've had in terms of weather so far, so many great days out here, some really great performances. Super duper looking forward to the next days. We've got the contest crew in. I saw some milling about by the gate. They'll be let in soon. The Saratoga Betting Challenge to the $1,000 live bankroll event. And then tomorrow we've got the Fourstardave Challenge, a $2,000 live bankroll event. Before we get into the meat of the show, where we'll be talking about racing in Saratoga, Arlington this week, JK, highlights of the meet so far for you from a wagering and or sporting point of view?
Wagering, there hasn't been any highlights. I think from people always ask how's the meet going? And I have no problem being honest with them and telling them it's not going very well. But that's just kind of how my meets always go. At least at Saratoga, Del Mar, I've kind of learned to embrace that. I have a lot of days, a lot of not so days, and then always come back to 2 big days. And so just got to keep kind of trying to find and pick your spots and find those days where it's going to be good. I've actually taken a lot of days off this week, so I'm feeling a little bit refreshed. We were focused on the show, obviously premiering on Wednesday, so I took Wednesday off. Didn't make any wagers yesterday. Try to stay away and just kind of clear my mind a little bit. If you have a losing run, it can manifest itself, and it can kind of turn into another losing day and another losing day, because then you start doing things that you're not accustomed to doing, or maybe being a little bit too protective. And those can sometimes result in bad days. Well,
frustration anyway, right? Because even if you're on a break or you're not doing well and you go and you're half-hearted with your play, in a funny way, I'm not saying this is right, but Horseplayers mentality, sometimes in that situation, in a funny way, even if you win, you lose.
Absolutely.
You're thinking about how much you would have bet on the horse had you been in a good run. Maybe it makes sense to just step back when you can.
One of the things I realized when you take those breaks, more often than not, at the end of the day, you'll say, man, I'm glad I didn't play today, more than you'll say, if I only would have played today, this was that day. You usually, your body, your mind, your ideas, when you look at the form for the first glance, you're going to know if it's a day you have a strong opinion, a day that you have a good feel of what's going on. And I just haven't felt that the last few days. Off the turf, obviously, isn't always a negative, but it didn't feel right to me in these spots. And so you just got to be careful. And so I'm excited about jumping back in today, playing in the contest today, the contest tomorrow. And we'll get back attacking them today.
Is this a new idea of these couple of days off before a contest during a losing-ish run, or is it more just something that presented itself to you?
No, I think they kind of naturally happen for me because of living in Texas. And like when I'm home, sometimes it's harder to get involved. And so I kind of have those built-in days of taking a break. But when you're up here and they're racing 6 days a week, I mean, every day you can go to the track for the most part. Tuesday, obviously, they're dark. But so I just didn't want to, like I said, my opening weekend wasn't great. Whitney weekend wasn't great. I didn't want to do damage to the bankroll on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so that if today or tomorrow is a good day, that I'm like making up for even more damage when I could have just taken a break and gone from there.
And just to clarify, it doesn't sound to me like you're saying before you crack the form, this is the day I'm going to take off. You're looking through, nothing's jumping out at you. The ideas aren't coming. You don't have horses you've been sitting on coming back. I think if you're in a poor run and a horse to watch comes in, how do you handle that differently?
You definitely don't want to pass on an opportunity you've been waiting for. That's why we do all the work we do, the trip notes and DRF formulator, the workout reports, all those things that we spend all this time on. You don't want to pass on an opportunity in which you feel like you have an edge. What I like to do is I just flip through the form the night before, see if there's anything that catches my attention, flip again in the morning, and just nothing was grabbing a hold of me. And so I wanted to just say, there's no reason to go over there and force it. There's no reason to go over there and play to be playing, to jump into the pick 5 pool just because there's a pick 5 running. And so today, obviously, I have a little bit, some more opinions. I have a lot of opinions tomorrow. So today and tomorrow will be the days that I try to get back attacking them.
I like this new, well thought out, conservative at times, Jonathan Kinchin, because I think the key thing is, and I think your play embodies this, there's days where you're going to want to look at it and say, you know what, there's not much here for me, I'm going to step back. And then there's days where you play the $14,000 double.
Absolutely. It's a tournament. That's a tournament setting, right? Obviously, it's not a move I make on a normal day, but you want to. It's a long haul. This meet is a long haul, 40 days, and then you have Del Mar too. It's a lot, and if you don't pick your battles, I think a lot of times you get yourself in situations you probably shouldn't be in.
It reminds me of what used to be anyway, and probably still is, a very successful route in the poker world. And you can probably get where I'm going to go next with my poker world analogy. The idea that many of the best players are tight and aggressive, meaning they're not looking to get involved in every spot, not looking to play the pick 5, as it were, just because there's a pick 5. But then when the opportunity is there, to be able to fearlessly plunge into the water, something I presume you'll be doing over the next 2 days at these Saratoga contests?
Absolutely. It's one of my these are one of my favorite contests. The racing here is so good, and I think that Dom's done a great job, Dom Labetti, of transitioning these to the live money sorts, but rather than the kind of, not the mythical, but the win place contest that Naira was kind of famous for before this. I think this is a lot more beneficial for the racetrack, allowing guys to churn their money like this. But I also think it allows it's a more dynamic style for Saratoga, where you can really kind of press your opinion. You don't find yourself having to play in all of these hard races. You can kind of pick your spot. So definitely excited about it. It's going to be fun. There's a lot of people. I think it's at 215 today, 170 something tomorrow.
I heard it was over 200 both days.
Oh, really?
Remember,
okay.
It hadn't closed yesterday.
He sent an update. I think it said like 147. But yeah, you're probably right. It's probably up even more now.
I'm not sure the exact numbers, so I won't cite them, but I will say this. Dom Labetti and Naira and the people he works for have done a tremendous job turning this contest back into a major event. I will be covering it over the course of the next 2 days. JK will be playing in it. Should be a lot of fun. Speaking of contests, speaking of the poker analogy I made before, we had the debut of the World Horseplayers Tour pilot the other night at Fasig-Tipton. Naira having some representation there in the form of the great Jimmy the Teller, who was there punching tickets out at Santa Anita Preakness weekend when we film the pilot. Normally punches tickets at the Post Bar here in Saratoga, a.k.a. the Paddock Bar. Another one of our favorite places in addition to this new stretch area. But I just wanted to ask you, JK, we've talked about it a little bit, but I think the people on air are going to want to hear, what has the reaction been so far?
It's been really good. We've had a lot of positive notes, and a lot of people seem to be really excited and embraced it. A lot of really kind words and encouraging us for the endeavor. I think that like anything, when there's always going to be little tweaks we can make along the way. But I think for a first step, we're going in the right direction, and now we've got something we can actually show. A lot of times, people go into these pitch meetings with these networks and say, "Hey, we've got an idea. We want to do a show where there's a bunch of guys, and they're chasing around trucks that are flipping over. What do you think about that?" And sometimes that works, and the network executive will jump right on it. I think one of the things that I'm excited about with our idea is it is an unknown world, racing, to a lot of people. And instead of trying to explain it to someone, we showed it to them. And obviously, you know, depending on what network we go with, there'll be some suggestions, some changes, and some things they want us to focus more on, or whatever that might be. But the good news is that we don't have to get them to, we don't have to hope that they're going to understand. They're going to be able to see it. And so we're excited about that.
What are the next steps, just to give people out there an idea of what's going on?
Yeah, it's kind of a two-prong attack, and I don't know if it's chicken or the egg or the chicken, but what we need to do is we need to lay out where our next 8 events are going to be, 8 to 10 events for 2019. We've started conversations, at least at the very, very premature stage, with all the racetracks you would think we'd have conversations with about having more. No one's closed the door on us yet. So we'll have those conversations to see if we can find our racetrack partners. And then we're also going to try to find a network and a way to get this thing broadcast, whether it's going to be through kind of a new age streaming service or more traditional network situation, cable network situation. We'll find out what happens with that. But it's tricky because I think the networks are going to ask, well, where are your 8 events going to be? And the 8 racetracks are going to ask what channels they're going to be on. So we're going to need them to both be a little bit creative and kind of come along this journey with us together.
I like it. Well put. If you haven't seen the World Horseplayers Tour pilot, you're going to have an opportunity right here through DRF programming. It's going to be part of the DRF live stream on Tuesday, right after the Matt Vernier show at 1 o'clock. If you're antsy and you don't want to wait that long, you have the opportunity to check it out now. If you look at JK or my social media or the @Horseplayer Tour Twitter feed, you'll be able to find a full link to that video. Eventually, it will also live on drf.com/YouTube. Quick programming note before we turn the conversation here once again. We are broadcasting live from Saratoga at the stretch area. It's beautiful. We're going to talk about your first impressions of it in a minute, JK. But since we're here live, the national anthem will be happening in about 20 minutes. When that comes, we are going to not sign off, but we're going to go quiet for the 2 minutes that will take. And producer AJ has some commercials lined up. So we're going to be throwing to commercial. That's not necessarily a new business model for the show or anything, just something we want to do to be respectful here at Saratoga Racecourse instead of blathering on during the anthem, just so folks know that that's coming, no surprises. So, JK, what do you think of this stretch area?
I was very impressed when we came here last week to check it out, just to kind of come up here and see what it's all about. First and foremost, from a racing standpoint, my favorite place to watch a race, whether it's the Kentucky Derby, when I go to the Derby, I try to find a spot there. Wherever I'm at, if I'm watching a race live, my favorite place is right at between the 8th and the 16th pole, maybe even closer to the 8th pole. I feel like when you're watching a race live from the 8th pole, you can tell what's going to happen. I don't know what I mean, obviously it's the dimensions from the TV screen, but when you're looking at it live, you can see the horses, you can see who's traveling better, you can see who's got a lot of horse. It's just a much clearer picture. So one of the best parts about this is that you can see, you're going to see that winning move from this area. From a flashy standpoint, one of my favorite things is these airports that have these little iPads everywhere where you can order your drink. You don't have to your flight's coming. You don't have a lot of time and you want to get a beer real quick or a soda or whatever. You can just hop on the little iPad and order your drink or your food or whatever it is right there. And you can pay right there. You don't have to wait to get your check. There's about 30 of these little terminals up here where you can sit at the bar looking like a bar setup looking out onto the racetrack. You can order food, drinks, most importantly, for all of us.
I was waiting for you to get to this part.
You can change it to Monmouth and watch the 4th and bet it. You can flip back to Saratoga, watch the head on. You can
camera views too. That's
you can
pretty
change
cool.
all the camera views. You can swipe your Naira Bets card and bet right through there. And it's where tech needs to go in racing. The room's beautiful. It's got like a nice cool wood floor. The bar's nice. There's big screen HD TVs everywhere. Nice comfortable seating. It's not the, God bless the wooden chairs a little bit further down the stretch, but the newer age chairs looks like you could sit in them for a couple hours and not be upset about it.
They did get new chairs in the boxes this year. They deserve credit for that, I will say. But your point taken, especially if you're talking about just random seats along the way. Still a great day to experience the races, but I think it's the difference between you go to a modern ballpark and you still might have some areas where you're squeezed into a seat with a lot of other people, or you have like a VIP club area almost with great viewing. In this case, a really well-stocked bar with some creative cocktails. You got full-service kitchen here. Those touchscreen tablets that JK was referring to. They'll bring stuff right to your seat. and it's just a very chill, relaxed, VIP setting to watch the races. I'm looking forward to spending a whole day here today.
And look, although Pete mentioned that they do have the draft beers, if you happen to be the beer police, Mike Hogan, we're not drinking yet. So
I think it was just an excuse to quote Johnny Cash personally, and I appreciate that. Very funny. Now, serious question: are we going to be in trouble with our friends at the Paddock Bar? I mentioned both to Desiree, who manages sort of the bar setup down there, and Amy, the assistant general manager for Union Square Hospitality, that we were coming to sit down here today. And you'd have thought you'd have thought she caught me. They both caught me cheating on them. Like, what's going on? Are we going to be welcome back in the Paddock Bar at the end of the day?
I think so. I think they'll still have us back. You are the mayor, right? So I think that they'll let the mayor back in no matter what. But fun to just kind of check out some different spots. I think a lot of racetrack guys and girls in general, we find our comfort zone and then we stay there. And I think that we miss a lot of the aspects and the angles of the racetrack. And so I'm excited to be on the front side. I mean, I'll be honest. I was here opening weekend. I was here. I've been here pretty much all last weekend and most of this week. I took a couple of days off. I'm not sure I've seen a race run live since I've been here.
Really?
So I will see that today. I guess when I did Fox Sports, I was on the roof.
Yeah.
I saw one from up there. But this will be my first of the meet to see live.
I'll put you on the spot here, and I don't know the answer to this question. Will you be making a return appearance on Fox Sports anytime this week?
Yeah, I've been invited back. I thought it was going to be this weekend for today or tomorrow actually. But there's I don't know if Fox Sports is even on tomorrow, but they're back. Alabama. And I have been asked to come back for Alabama, so travel permitting. It'll be a quick trip up and back, but I'm going to come up Saturday to do that for 2 hours with, I believe, with Paula Duca and Greg Wolf again.
Mr. TV star over here. Just, when you rise to the top, don't forget your old buddy PTF.
I'm just trying to catch up to TV's Matt Bernier.
You got a lot of catching up to do. I walked the grandstand. He was kind enough to do my Saturday show seminar. We'll be doing that again here tomorrow, 11 a.m. Talent to be announced. I think I'm going to reach into the Matisse crew, maybe make you have a repeat appearance and sit out here. It's going to be on the second floor of the grandstand, right outside the new stretch area. I don't think they'll let you come in to look around at the beginning of the day, but you can maybe poke your head over the barrier and check it. It's also right by where the contest is going to be.
Production meeting inside of the show. Are you sure they're going to move? That looks like all those tables are set up.
They are moving me just out, right out here,
okay.
Sort of over. Instead of over my left shoulder, I'm going to be over my right shoulder. They're going to set it up there. But I do appreciate you looking out for me, though. But then after the show, walking around with Matt Bernier, every 10 feet, somebody runs up to him. Your ego couldn't handle this. I don't think, JK, you should ever walk a racetrack with Matt Bernier because they'll look by you like you don't even exist. And everybody, mostly female, wanting pictures with the great Matt. It was kind of like some sort of modern degenerate Tom Jones.
Matt's much more good looking than I am. The beard, the hair, he's usually dressed up than I am. There's a lot of reasons why the fans here would rather have a picture with him than with me.
Big news coming out of the West Coast. I don't think we're going to talk too much West Coast, unfortunately, on this show with all the exciting goings-on in Chicago. But big news coming out of the West Coast last night, that Unique Bella she hasn't been entered yet, right, but is been nominated?
Right, nominated. I think the nominations were due last night at midnight, and I believe it was like a sneak move. No one was expecting it in Jerry Hollendorfer.
For the Pacific Classic.
For the Pacific Classic, which is really interesting. I was thinking, when did she run last? And I realized she ran when I was in Del Mar, and that feels like it was 2 weeks ago. So I think she's going to run back on 3 weeks rest, going 1.25 miles. But you know what? The thing is she's always been a little bit up and down, in and out, hurt here, hurt there. If she's doing well, what's the point of just training her up to a race that she might not make it to?
You don't think of her as one. We were talking about the distance maybe being an issue a little bit last time. Now we're talking about 1.25 miles. Is this maybe also a testament, in addition to how well she's doing, how this race is shaping up in general?
The other nominations weren't ones that you would run in the other direction about, right? Catalina Cruiser is obviously a talented up-and-coming horse. Accelerate, established horse. Pavel ran well at Churchill is probably one you got to keep an eye out for, but it's definitely not a world-beating group.
Yeah, it does seem, you're never supposed to be afraid of one horse, as the old expression goes. So the idea, if you're ever going to take a shot to do it there while she's doing well, it's a bold move, but it's super interesting, and that'll definitely be a story to follow. That's a race we'll obviously be talking about on the show. All right, I'm trying to think how we should divide up our content here, JK. Why don't we start talking about races? Be ready for me to jump in and throw it to commercial when the anthem starts. But we still have 10 minutes. Our friends here have done a great job. That ambient noise is way less than it was. So I think we should be able to figure out what's going on in rock and roll.
Before we dive into to Arlington and Saratoga, where the meat of the action is, I just want to point people's attention. It's not a betting race. It's a watching race. You definitely want to tune in tomorrow in race 3 at Del Mar and watch Instagram. Has the fastest figures of any 2-year-old leading up to the culmination of these kind of greatest stakes races for these babies. That horse is super impressive. I think they paid $1.2 million for it. 114 time form, 1x10. Just set your alarm on your phone and make sure you flip over to Del Mar. Check that out. Could be a single in the early pick 5.
That's the best pal.
Yeah.
So that'll be very interesting to see. Do you know what the plan? Assuming all goes well, do you know what the plan is? Are they thinking of trying to come back at the end of the meet for the debutante, the Grade 1? Not the debutante, the
clink. I would assume so, but I don't. But maybe. I mean, it'd be fun if you got to run against Roadster. I'm assuming that's where Roadster's going to show up. That'd be a nice early clashing of the Titans in that one with those two.
Could be super fun. All right, here's a race we will talk about, I think, very quickly happening. I got to get my PPs in the right order. It's harder to be organized when it's a road game. I'm used to these home games in the Brooklyn Bunker. But we have some extra stakes activity at Saratoga tomorrow, starting with the Adirondack, and a filly who turned a lot of heads here at Saratoga for our buddy Tom Lute and Phoenix Thoroughbreds on opening weekend. What is your view? Is this just Lyrical Ladies single and move on, or do you have anything clever here?
Yeah, look, I'm a big fan of Tom Lute. I'm a big fan of what he's doing and the amount of money they're spending in this sport, whether you call it a lot of money or whatever it is. It's always encouraging to see guys that are willing to put their money into this game and to spend money supporting this industry. When a horse sells for $1.3 million, it's good for everybody. It doesn't matter how you look at it. It's good for the farm. It's good for the grooms. It's good for the hot walkers. It's good for everyone. So encouraging to see that. Look, I mean, I guess there's probably someone in here that could win. Lyrical Lady ran a 92. Sue's Fortune ran a 92 last time, too. It feels like there's going to be more improvement with this well-bred filly, the more than ready filly. Steve Asmussen and Tom Lute go way back. I think that's probably the Phoenix Thoroughbreds Asmussen connection is kind of coming back together based on that their previous relationship. One of their best horses they ever had together was a More Than Ready. Regally Ready. Really fun horse, won graded stakes on 2 turns, dirt, grass, everything. So I think Lyrical Lady's going to be tough in here. She's forwardly placed. She's always got some improve. Asmussen horses tend to improve. They can win first out, but they don't typically regress off of that win. They keep going in the right direction. I think it probably has a lot to do with how he trains them in the morning. He doesn't bang on them too much. They're always in the bridle, and they're always going 50s, and these really unassuming numbers. Don't let Asmussen work times throw you off of a horse.
I think that's good advice, and obviously that barn going great guns and does look to me like a single and move on situation if you're playing the early pick 5 here at Myra on Saturday. The featured race of the day, I think we have time to get into this one here, is the Fourstardave, gives the day its name, goes as race 8. And JK, I don't know, we were talking before about, the distracted, the horse racing, the degenerate equivalent of the distracted boyfriend meme could be, me with the paddock bar on my arm and looking over to the stretch area. I think we could come up with a distracted boyfriend meme for you and this race.
It's weird. I only have 1 kid. I can imagine if I had 2, I would probably like this one more that I have with me now. He's my first one, right? Not so much this one. Devisadero is my first horse love in terms of this category. Obviously, there's Rachel and Zenyatta and the others, but it's tricky. Podcast era horse love. And then Yoshida shows up in here. And I feel awful. I feel awful that I have to make this decision. I think the distance is part of the reason I'm going to make the decision, but I'm not sure the mile is exactly what Devisadero wants. However, I will say this: every time he's tried it, he's never really gotten the pace setup he's going to get today with Heart to Heart and Voodoo Song or tomorrow. So I'm excited to see that. But I think it's Yoshida here. Yoshida ran huge in Ascot. I'm sure that Rob Dove, the top 10 pro punters in the UK today, would tell you that performance was pretty impressive. I think it'll translate well here, and I think Yoshida will get the job done.
Me too. I wish I could argue with you about it, but I think the setup should be great for Yoshida, should be laid out for this. Another barn that's just been going great guns for Bill Mott. At least one wise guy out there is saying to himself, Divisadero, he's also entered in the Million. Isn't he going to run there? You had some info, though, JK, that this will be the spot for Divisadero?
I believe it was one of our colleagues on DRF I went to Twitter, and one of the things you can do if you don't already do this, go to Twitter, go to the search function and search a horse's name, and you'll see what people are talking about. The first thing that popped up was Divisadero is going to run in this race.
Gotcha. So that'll be certainly interesting. Made you look for Chad Brown as maybe a little bit of an interesting contender to possibly get in there for second, especially if the mile proves too sharp for Divisadero. What did you make of this Chad Brown trainee, JK?
No, I absolutely can win. I mean, Luis Saez and Chad don't hook up too often.
What did you make of that combination?
Well, I made that Jose's out of town, Johnny's out of town, Joel's out of town, and I'm sure, Manny's on Yoshida, and I would imagine...
Castellano has ridden the horse the last 3 times. Is there some residual bad feeling from the race the other day? Maybe not, because Castellano's on so many other brown horses through the day.
Yeah, I think Javier just shows up on Delta Prince, who he's been riding before. So I think it was just maybe a pre-commitment or something. Yeah, I wouldn't look too far into it. It's just kind of an example that these horses. There's a lot of guys out of town, and the colony is very deep here. You miss out on your first 5 picks, and you get Luis Saez. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I will say this also. As dangerous as the musical jockey game and what rider switches mean on a regular day, and there are instances where I'll say there's some signal in that. Very often, though, there are stories we don't know about. I think you multiply the chance that there's some explanation that we're not going to know about that makes perfect sense by about 5 when you're talking about a day like Saturday where you have the biggest races happening out of town. I think just as a rule on Saturday, you don't want to, if you're somebody who normally tries to look into jockey bookings for signal in your handicapping, probably don't want to get carried away with that on Saturday. Though if somebody out there has an instance where they think it is meaningful on Saturday's card at Saratoga, we'd love to hear from you on Twitter. Do you agree with my general sentiment there?
Absolutely. Don't make any decisions based on IRAD and or Jose off at Saratoga on Saturday. They're at Million. They're at the Million Day running some of those big races, the Grade 1 Beverly D and the Arlington Million, which we'll talk about soon.
Yeah, we'll be getting into those races. I think you made the other key point about this race with the Voodoo Song and Heart to Heart in there. It certainly does seem to they ought to compromise each other's chances. Would you use one or the other in spreads, or would you leave them off completely?
I mean, they're both usable, but they're both one-way types. I mean, I guess if I had to pick one, it would be Heart to Heart. I just think he's more classy. And I also think that he's probably the one that he always finds the lead. So maybe if one of them's going to take back, it would be Voodoo Song. So I would use Heart to Heart there as the one that could possibly get loose, but it really does feel like they're going to move quick. And either way, those horses, if one of them gets loose, they're not going to go 25. They're going to still gallop along in a fair fraction, should set up good enough for Yoshida and or Divisadero.
It's going to be a really fascinating race. It's a short field, but a very interesting handicapping puzzle and a fascinating sport here at Saratoga on Saturday. Did you look? We didn't even talk about this before the show. Did you look at the 9th race by chance?
I did. I gave a double on out of the gate, so I did look at the 9th race.
I had a horse in here I was kind of interested in with a lot of angles. Number 4, Always a Suspect. Did you have that one on your tickets?
Didn't. I used I'm pulling up the time. I used the 1, the 2, and the 5. I thought that allowance race at Phi Beta Express and Breaking the Rules came out of it was actually a pretty good race. I think that Breaking the Rules was closing into slow fractions, and I think Phi Beta Express is going to be forwardly placed. It can still finish. I thought those two were interesting, but I really couldn't get off of using this one horse, this Chad horse on the rail. I talked about it at the beginning of the meet when we were previewing it. I'm always going to try to beat Chad and Todd when I can, and I tried really hard here, but I just couldn't muster up the courage to leave him off with pattern recognition.
What you think that will wire them, or
yeah, just down on the inside. The time form suggested a forwardly placed situation here is probably where you want to be. Had a lot of speed last time at Belmont, June 10th, when he ran and got beat by True Timber. I just think from down on the inside, Luis Saez down there, not going to take back. He'll get a forward position moving forward. I think he'll be involved.
Always a suspect to me. Just had kind of an improving look. First time Diodoro can be a thing. That barn's going okay. Might have been a little bit against the track last time as well. If I were just picking, we are at the anthem actually, so we are going to throw to a commercial break here, and we'll be back in a minute. Hey, we are back. Thank you, AJ, for filling that in, and nice classic rendition of the anthem here as we get back into it. During the break, we had an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the new stretch area. What in that presentation stood out to you, JK?
The 144 tablets, the USB chargers. I'm that guy whose phone's always dying. Actually, you're the guy whose phone. Mine's always dying.
Sometimes I let it die, but yeah, sometimes I get caught.
Mine's always dying. Yours always dies. So that's always good. There's a trivia. I kind of want to bring Nick up here. Tamara, I bet he'd be good at the trivia.
Racing trivia and apparently
Saratoga
specific stuff as well.
Absolutely. So it's exciting. It's a really cool place. I'm excited to hang out here for the day.
And we should also mention lots of ways to investigate about getting tickets. If you go to NYRA.com, you can navigate to it, but I'll tell you the URL, NYRA.com/Saratoga/the-stretch is how you get to the page where you can get all the information. There's also a box office up here. There are some limited ticket availability windows throughout the rest of the meet. I recommend that you come up here to the stretch or go online to NYRA.com and check it out. Very, very cool stuff. All right, let's get back to the racing. We were in the midst of talking about this cool allowance race that goes as race 9. I was talking about Always a Suspect and how I'm interested in that one. Probably a little bit more for underneath, but just one to maybe include at a price in what you've got going on. Breaking the Rules is the one for me. This is the horse that I got to embarrass myself on UK TV when my friend John Berry was very interested in betting on March 24th. Just absolutely loved this pedigree, and I but being a know-it-all, he was just surprised the horse was 9-10 to 1. And I, being a know-it-all, was like, well, these Shug McGahee horses often they need a run first out. Well, not the case with Breaking the Rules. Won very impressively, came back to win the allowance. Now hasn't won in the last 2 starts, but I do feel like the last race especially was maybe a little bit better than it looked when you examine the internal fractions and watch the way that race flowed. I'm interested to see what this Warfront colt out of protesting by AP Indy might have to offer up here at Saratoga. Seems like one that could end up scoring, hopefully at a halfway decent price. I know Breaking the Rules was on your tickets.
Yeah, I'm going to use him. Gold for the King, the winner of the Breaking the Rules last race, came back and ran a 118 figure off of the 125 he ran previously. Time form, a little bit of a decline, but still good enough, close enough that makes me feel like that race was quick. Then he was actually a quality runner in that race. I like Breaking the Rules. I struggle with horses that are going to come from off of it. It's just a thing that I have always struggled with, kind of leaning heavily on those. But I do think that he is a likely winner of the race, and I feel really comfortable just having the 1, the 2, and the 5 in this spot.
All right, maybe vertical players consider throwing mine in underneath, or heck, throwing on top. I'm right and he's wrong once in a while. It happened last weekend, sort of. All right, let's talk about the lure, JK. Where did you end up going in here? I assume you've looked at it.
No, I looked. This race is really tough. I thought that they might let Mr. Cub get a little bit loose. Chris Landeros doesn't typically ride here. Not that he doesn't ride here, but he's not here every day. And I think that Chris could get loose this horse. I normally like to try to beat horses that have the blue time form early last time, but I do think this horse could get loose. I do feel like some of them might let this one run away a little bit, and I thought his performances this year have been pretty darn good. And he's run well at Keeneland. He ran well at Churchill. I think he's a little bit interesting. Ian Wilkes can kind of sneak up and grab you for a second, especially with all these other horses in here that are going to take a lot of money. There's we got Christoph, we've got Shug, we've got Chad, we've got Mott, we've got Cassie, we've got Kieran. I think Ian Wilkes might get a little bit lost. I'm going to use Conquest Panthera as well, closing into those blue fractions up at Woodbine in the And the King Edward, I think he could be dangerous as well.
Mr. Cub is definitely on my short list. I'm having a big McGahee day. I definitely don't want to get beat by Inspector Lindley, who's done some of his best work at Saratoga, and I think has competitive numbers and could be that potential best closer should it not work out for Mr. Cub on the lead. I wanted to get your take on Zenner, the aforementioned Kieran McLaughlin runner. Last seen in this race last year, ran very, very well. McLaughlin very quietly having an excellent meet up here once again at Saratoga. See, it feels like the last 3 years, especially in the first half of the meet, his horses have been overperforming. I mean, if this horse runs his best race, he obviously is going to be right there, if not the outright winner. But how do you evaluate one like this off this kind of a layoff, and will you be included?
It's actually very funny that you asked me that, Pete. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
371 days off is a long time. We all know that. Here's what I'll do. I have no idea the answer to your question right now, but tonight at about 10 o'clock before I go to bed, I'll log into DRF.com. I'll go to the workout report. This horse worked on the turf at Saratoga, not on the dirt, on the turf. I'll see how the workout report came back. If it's a B plus or a stronger, or if it's B with working with someone good, or B with some positive words, then I'll use them. If it's C plus, B minus, then I'll probably downgrade the horse a little bit. I'll let the workout report tell me if he's ready or not.
That workout report can often be a fantastic guide. You can check it out at DRF.com, particularly valuable for a meet like Saratoga. Horses coming in from a lot of different places when you can get some extra signal from the workout report, especially, we have to make so many tough calls up here, and making a tough call on one at the lower end of the odds spectrum, why not gather all the information you can? DRF workout report gives you some of that stuff.
Absolutely. And like I mentioned earlier, it's the work was on the turf. One of the things I had to break the habit of, and we talked about it on the show before, is if you are looking at dirt works for a turf horse, they're not telling you the right story. If the horse could work good on the dirt, he'd be a dirt horse, right? So, or she, of course. So you make sure you keep that in mind when you're looking at the reports.
Okay. Now, the last race is not one that I have looked at. I will only make you talk about it if you have something exciting to say about it, or I'll just ask you a general question. Lots of good racing on Saturday. Little bit of a tricky race to end this contest, isn't it?
Absolutely, always is. I think they do that on purpose. They got 16 horses entered. Obviously, they won't all run. There's a lot of AEs, so even if there is some scratches, we'll still probably have a full field. So the gate will be full. This is one of the reasons why I like to make my moves in contests earlier. I don't want it to come down to the maiden 40 on the grass in the last.
Yeah, well, that's one thing, actually, just to loop back to the WHT for a minute. I've heard some people make the observation that somehow, and I don't really understand why, but somehow we've heard just a modicum of criticism about the idea that at the end of the tournament, you basically have players with 0 and somebody with something. Now, putting aside the fact that that's what happens in every poker tournament, but of course in a poker tournament the rules are kind of different. Every hand has a winner and the money all flows one way. But one other sort of subtle thing I like about the WHT format is that because of the blinds raising, it forces people to make their move earlier. Too often, I think this is accurate, too often in the live bankroll contest as constituted now, save, and the last race should always be important, just like the last 2 minutes in a football game should always be important. But I think it's fair to say that in some contests, and the typical live bankroll format I think is guilty of this, the last race takes on too much importance. Fair?
Yeah, here's my prediction. Whoever's in first, when they break from the gate in the last race, tomorrow and today, will not be in first when it's over. There's too many people. There's 15, 20 playing today, 200 something playing tomorrow. There's too many people that are going to be able to cold cock some exacta, be alive in some double, hit some win bet. You got to think that every horse will be covered with a $5,000 win bet on him, if not more. It's inevitable that it's going to happen. And so, I agree with you. I think that it's nicer when it can be the full day's performance rather than just the last race. So, we'll see what happens, but keep an eye on that leaderboard. I would imagine that's going to be the case. I'll be trying to make my move before that. And to be honest, in full disclosure, one of my favorite moves in tournaments that have doubles is to play the double going into the last, so that no one's. I don't want people to see me coming. I want to have a kind of if I hit that last race, then I'll jump to where I want to be.
All right, let's talk about these races at Arlington, JK. We've got 12 to 14 minutes to wrap them up. I haven't done be honest, and I apologize, haven't done the full download on all of the Europeans yet. I've more given a quick once-over. It's just been crazy up here, and I haven't had the chance to do as much work as I would have liked to. That said, we've got some tools at our disposal, and I think we should chat about these races a little bit, starting with the Secretariat. Were you surprised to see Analyze It running once again at 10 furlongs the way the end of his last two races have gone?
No, I'm hoping for the performance that I was hoping for last time, which is that, hey guys, let's get out of this really talented horse's way and let's let him roll. If he does that, I think he wins. If they send him away from there, he's 2 or 3 clear the entire time, I don't think they'll catch him. I think he's that talented. I think Chad Brown is a good enough trainer to know if this horse couldn't go 1 mile and a quarter, he'd stop. He'd stop 1 mile and a quarter.
Right.
There's a lot of other situations they could do with this horse. This isn't the best spot for him if that's the scenario. And I think the fact that they keep showing up here and running here, they're going to do that. I mean, he could go out to Del Mar and run in the Del Mar Derby, right? I mean, it's for 3-year-olds, it's a grade 1 race. He doesn't have to keep banging his head against the wall, and the fact that he shows up here is encouraging to me. And I think the horse is going to be aggressively ridden. He might not, I don't think Analyze It wants to do his running in the last 3/16 of the race. So don't save anything for the last 3/16. Let him do his running in the first 3/16 of the race, where I think it's where his advantage really is.
I take it from your analysis there that you are also a big believer in the class and toughness and quality of Catholic Boy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I saw Jonathan Thomas the other day and didn't get a chance to tell him that his classy horse continuously beats me, and I apologize for that. He is a classy, gutsy, hard-trying son of a gun, and I sure would like to see him run in the Travers just to kind of show how tough he really is.
That race shaping up to be amazing. The other day when we were talking about it, I think Catholic Boy was the one we left out. We talked about all these horses who might be showing up there and didn't even mention Catholic Boy. Will certainly be an interesting item. We'll get to that in a couple weeks, though. I wanted to ask you before we get to the European contingent here in the Secretariat about Untamed Domain. Untamed Domain, really interesting horse. He's one of these horses who at this point has had enough horror trips that he's either the unluckiest horse in training, or is he maybe one of these horses who lacks a little bit of quickness, a little bit of acceleration at key times that gets himself into tricky spots? What's your general read on Untamed Domain? Will you be using on Saturday?
I just feel like it's like, one of those airports that's really busy, and you're if you don't have the foresight and you don't have the quickness to get through those gaps, then you're always behind people. You always get in bad trips. I've got a lot of friends and people I'm walking to the airport. That happens to them all the time. I think Untamed Domain just can't get out of those spots, and he keeps getting in that kind of trouble. And even if he gets a perfect trip, I don't think he's good enough to beat Analyze It. If Analyze It runs the race, I think he will. And if Analyze It doesn't run that race, I don't think he's good enough to beat Hunting Horn, who ran 3rd, to Analyze It and Catholic Boy in the Belmont Derby. I respect Catholic Boy. I respect Analyze It. I have to respect how well Hunting Horn ran there, and I think he'll be tough in this spot as well.
Can you think – I like Hunting Horn too. I mean, I pegged Hunting Horn minutes after they hit the line at Ascot as a Secretariat horse. Now, when I did that, I wasn't expecting him to run in the Belmont Derby too. So now we have that form. I can't really come up with, watching that race, a reason why Hunting Horn will reverse the tables, but it's another one of these horses, sort of not unlike Athena when we talked about her for the Belmont Oaks. At the price of the morning line of 7-2, I don't see a reason why the horse is going to reverse form with Analyze It. I'm still tempted to include in spreadier things because, A, when I have a thought like that months ahead, like I had at Ascot, I don't like to get off that thought. I mean, maybe that's muggish, but that's just the way I am. And then, B, the thought that maybe you're going to see, a la Athena in the Oaks, a big old drift with everybody coming to that same conclusion that he doesn't have a reason to reverse form. And now all of a sudden he's 6-1 and Chad is 8-5. And then all of a sudden the horse is going to be a big use from a value point of view. But let me just ask it this way. Do you see any reason why Hunting Horn will reverse that form? You sound a little interested in it.
And I mean, not a ton of reasons why. I guess the reason is that we're still working on a thesis for Analyze It, right? The thesis is if you let him run his fastest race early and you let him get after it early, that he'll be able to bottom out the rest of the field and stick around. I don't know if that's still. I don't know if that's going to work. We haven't proven that yet. And so, for me, if it falls apart, which it's likely to do if he's not going to do that, then I see Hunting Horn as a horse that's could turn the tables in that situation. I actually think you might go off favored. Hunting Horn.
Wow.
Look, it's Aiden O'Brien. It's Aiden O'Brien. Analyze It has stopped like he's been, whatever for the last 2 times. I just feel like it could be a weird Aiden O'Brien move.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't think so, right? I mean, it's Chad. He probably will be favored. If he is favored, I'm not sure that's the best price on him. I mean, he has literally been 1 to 100 at some point of his last 2 races and found a way to lose, and now he's the favorite in the Grade 1 Secretariat. That, to me, that's a little bit weird, and especially there's a 13-horse field.
I think the Trad Brown factor might trump that. But it's a good point. This is a good race. This is a much better race, I think, to be a value-oriented, probabilistic type player than the way that we sometimes like to talk about races on the podcast, which is more selection-oriented, though you did boldly go ahead and make a selection of Analyze It, and I appreciate that. But it's definitely one to keep an eye on everything that's happening. Wow, the time is flying talking about this race. Let's very quickly talk about some of these Euros. You got a quick thought first?
Yo, I just want to say Captivating the Moon, that's my bomb horse. If you have a bomb horse you want to do a head-to-head on, I'm good with that. The turf was very firm at Arlington Park on preview day, and this horse had no shot coming from way out of it. Real Story, who's drawn on the inside, wired the field here. Daddy's Little Darden was forwardly placed. A lot of horses that were forward on the grass that day won. I think the Captivating Moon could be a little bit tricky. I've been trying to catch that one for a while.
More of an underneath or even for a penny on top?
A penny on top.
All right. Platinum Warrior, very interesting member of the Euro contingent. You have to come up with an excuse for the Irish Derby, but 2 back ended up looking good and really pretty easily handling an ultimate Group 1 winner of the Irish Derby in Latrobe. Who knows what happened? I want to watch the replay more. I want to come up with some excuse for that. I want to dig. I want to see if it was a bleeding situation. Maybe the Lasix now. Maybe that's why the horse is here on form. That's one you do not want to leave out, I would say. And then there's also, I'm interested to do a little bit more digging on Lucius Tiberius at a price, the other Aiden O'Brien. Other Aiden O'Brien, not necessarily the angle that the other Chad or the other Baffert is for some. But this horse has some decent form and some races that look okay on the clock. Not going to be far out of it. And if that 12 to 1 on the morning line is accurate, one that you definitely want to consider taking a look at. We're going to have to speed round a little bit here, the Beverly D and the Million itself. JK, your thoughts on the Beverly D?
I'm going to help you out for timing. Sister Charlie for fun.
Really? Back in 21 days against Athena?
For fun.
Why?
Head-to-head?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just think that the last race, the Diana, going the mile and an eighth, getting up and winning that race, grinding it away, having a little bit of extra ground. I think that we've always heard that more ground, the better for her. She had the weird race where 4-star Crook beat her on Friday, the eve before Belmont Day. I think she's going to be tough in here. Chad wouldn't run her back if she wasn't where he needed her to be. That's what Chad does, and it's, I think, maybe even to some people's annoyance. He only runs them when they're perfect.
That's a fair point.
And I don't think he would run her here if she wasn't.
It just doesn't seem like that much of a Chad move. And as much as the narrative has said the bit about the distance, the PPs tell another story, looking a little flat without punch in the lane late going longer. And meanwhile, you've got Athena, who really ran tremendously well, laid out for this. I'm happy with, I'm going to use both in picks, but I'm happy to do a head-to-head for fun. Look to improve my record to 3-106 against you, JK. Let's move on quickly to the Arlington Million itself. Your boy Spring Quality back in here. I was seeing a real case for Chad to get it done yet again in this spot with Almanar 5-1 on the morning line, just based on figures and form, just basic handicapping, square price on a guy who wins the race every year. What did you think about this one?
Fingers crossed. I'm hopeful. In the DRF workout report, typically in the summer when horses have been training here, they go to Arlington. The guys throw a little blurb in there about how they've been doing. It looks like Almanar and Robert Bruce have been working together. I want to see what's going on there. They've been working on the turf. My lean is Robert Bruce. We talked about Spring Quality running well, Sadler's Joy. High Happy, and then also Manitoulin, who didn't run so well last time, but talked about that race kind of being key. I think that Robert Bruce could be tough in here, but I think Oscar Performance is going to be dangerous on the Ford. At Ford, he's run well at Arlington before. I've always thought Oscar Performance is dangerous. Jose's will be there. He'll be forward with the horse. I want the 2 outside.
Or you're not worried about the post. You're not worried about the potential of other speed inside. You figure I don't love Deauville in the spot. I think we know what he is, and I think one of the Chads will probably step up past that horse. But I could see things being a little uncomfortable for Oscar Performance from the wide outside their potential.
Deauville's run 4 times in the U.S. He's never made the lead. So I don't see why he'll make it today with Oscar Performance, who's a precocious type, a 2-year-old type that does find the lead. I think that, and from the outside with Jose, he's going to get him out of there. Long run to the first turn, he's going to get that position, and I think he'll clear without any hassle.
And so in terms of how you're going to be playing this race, one of the Chads and Oscar Performance, is that basically as far as you're going to go?
Yeah, I'm going to buy a souvenir ticket on Divisadero, hopefully before they scratch. I'm just joking. He's not going to run here. Yeah, I want to be alive to those 2. I want to be alive to the 2 outside horses, Robert Bruce and Oscar Performance. I'll also look at the workout report, and Almanar could be used as maybe a B type if they're working together, and the workout report suggests that they're both doing well.
Are you anti-spring quality?
Yeah, I'm usually anti a horse that beats me out of nowhere if there's no real reason, and I just thought he just got the jump on.
Being the collapse.
Right, he got the jump there, and I just I don't think he's a quality type that will surprise another good group like this.
Ooh, that's harsh. Not a quality type.
No, I just don't think he's the kind. I think he's the kind that can win a race on a day when everything kind of falls in his hands, and he's not the type that I want.
Stakes winner. I don't think you'd say he is a quality.
That's fair.
But I agree. I don't know that he'll be up to this. However, another one in probabilistic terms, if this one starts going off at something crazy, 12 to 1, 15 to 1, higher than that, I could certainly see trying to find a way to involve. And I would maybe even consider using as a backup, just because I could see the world having the attitude that you have and just not respecting it at all. I agree. The last race, things set up, horses had trips, barely got up by a nose. But if the hate goes too far, one that I wouldn't rule out. But I'm more comfortable with the Chads and Oscar Performance, just like you are. All right, that's it. We've reached the end of our special live setup here at the stretch in Saratoga. We'll be hanging out down here today, maybe hitting the paddock bar later in the day if you're around and want to come and say hello, though you might be shot on sight if you try to get in this place. Security looks pretty tight, JK.
Man, I tell you what, all you got to do is throw some green jackets on these folks, and it will remind me of Fort Knox, also known as Keeneland.
Keeneland Clubhouse, that's exactly right. Where I once got rousted mid-podcast. Fortunately, that did not happen today. I want to thank you, JK. I want to thank Pat McKenna and all our friends here at NYRA for helping set this up. Most of all, I want to thank all the people out there for listening. You make the show so much fun. Thanks for all the kind words and comments on the World Horseplayers Tour. We'll have more information soon about how you can help us get that continue to be set up and running along and rocking and rolling. That's it. I will be back. We will be back on Tuesday. You'll be back in Planet Texas then, right? More of a normal setup on Tuesday to recap the Million and all the events from the weekend. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your photos.